You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Now, I know you guys are going to be sad. You're going to be really disappointed with today's podcast. Seattle Mayor Durkan is not running for reelection. Let's jump on into it. Before we do, I'm Sean Reynolds. I'm the owner of Summit Properties Northwest, Reynolds and Klein Appraisal, and your host this episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Let's jump on into it because I know you guys want to. All right, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan will not seek re-election, prompting reaction and speculation. This is a King 5 news article, one of our big networks here in Seattle. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan told King 5 she will not seek re-election for a second term. I can hear a lot of people, especially my viewers and my listeners, going, yay, yay. People don't like her. She's had a tough job. She's got a tough job. She's made some decisions that a lot of folks don't agree with, things that I don't necessarily agree with, but she's moving on. So we won't have her around to kick around after 2021. She'll finish out her term and she'll go do something else. I got a feeling after this summer, she just kind of took a beat down because she couldn't really win in the situations that Seattle kind of found itself in. And some of the scenarios were just brutal chop. There was no easy way out of that one. Made a lot of people unhappy, just kind of everybody in general. So let's kind of take a look and see what she's thinking. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan will not seek re-election, prompting what will likely be significant political posturing for the position and a 2021 campaign season like no other. Well, that's great because Seattle needs something else like no other, right? No, not really. I've decided that I will not seek a second term, Durkan told King 5. 2020 has just been a brutal year. We've had some really tough months ahead of us. We still have to fight COVID, and we got to deliver a vaccine. We're going to have a really hard job of rebuilding our economy, our downtown, and continuing all the work on equity. I could have spent the whole year campaigning to keep the job, or I can focus all my energies on doing the job. And I think there's only one right choice for Seattle, and that's for me to do the job. That's an excellent spin. Mayor Durkan, I give you credit. When you say stuff, it's kind of like, okay, I'll run down that. But then when I really start looking at it from my perspective, I'm like, what about this? What about that? All right. So the fact is maybe she feels like, I don't know how much of a reality is that I will win. So do I put my effort into that, or do I finish this bad boy out? And I've got a couple other deals brewing, and that's what I'm going to go and do. That's what I kind of think is happening. But what do I know? I'm a real estate guy from Bellevue. What can I possibly know? She told supporters and staff of her decision late Monday. I'm recording this on a Tuesday, so that happened yesterday. Durkan was seen as a stabilizing force when she was elected in 2017, fresh off the Seattle City Hall scandal that led to the abrupt resignation of Ed Murray and sudden appointments of then Council President Bruce Harrell and later Tim Burgess. Durkan was the first woman to be elected Seattle mayor since Bertha Knight Landis in 1926, before the Great Depression, bringing credibility and a resume that included being the first openly gay U.S. attorney in history. You know, it's funny. We do those things like first openly gay. Does anybody, do we even really care about that kind of, I guess, labeling anymore? I mean, I know it's important to get those labels correct, but it's like, all right, yeah, that's what she's doing in her personal life. I don't know. But it's kind of hard to read, like, first openly gay. Even though she probably was, and she gets credit for that, it's kind of like, she's a politician. Let's run with that. She led a charmed life initially on the 7th floor, finalizing a memorandum of understanding for a new sports arena a week into the job. A day later, the National Hockey League told the city to apply for a new franchise. Durkan was an active participant in the negotiations to bring a new franchise to Seattle. As of November of 2019, Durkan was dropping hints about running for a second term. In February of 2020, she filed paperwork with the city and state for a re-election campaign. But the novel coronavirus pandemic altered the course of the civic discourse and financial stability. Durkan faced significant criticism, even from her staunchest allies, for the Seattle Police Department's handling of protests on Capitol Hill and negotiations over funding. There's been a recall effort and vocal civil groups, some of which were her former supporters, calling for her resignation. She just got hammered on all sides, just by everybody. I remember being over at CHOP, and I'm thinking, people are upset at the way the police are handling this. I mean, they've got flash bombs going off and, some tear gas and normal stuff to kind of get rid of a protest that isn't quite so peaceful. And yet people are like, oh, the police are just being too hard on the protesters. So we've got that whole thing going on. And I'm over there looking around going, holy crap, if I was a cop, I don't know. This is not a good scenario. These protesters are not peaceful, and they need to have every tactic they can to kind of get these people in line, which is not happening. So you had that whole thing. You've got kind of the way the pandemic has been handled. You've got the way the homelessness situation, which is wildly out of control here in Seattle. Seattle City Council to blame for a lot of that, but the mayor as well. So this is on her watch. Just a lot of stuff going sideways in Seattle. Everything in Seattle and across America has changed since February, and not for the better, a lot would say. Durkan told King 5, as we've seen, we've just been through the most unprecedented times in our city's history, a global pandemic that has wreaked havoc across our city, an economic crisis that resulted in so many small businesses and workers have lost their jobs. Well, because you're keeping them closed. I'm gonna interject some stuff here because I just can't help myself. Our downtown and so many businesses have closed up because there is no police protection because you're defunding the police. And I know the mayor has been critical of the whole defunding the police thing because she's in that tight spot where she's like looking around going, man, I am the mayor of this city, 750,000 people. And I know if we defund the police much more than this is going to go wildly sideways. And yet you've got this city council that's just out for blood, just doesn't really understand a lot of stuff because otherwise they wouldn't be making the moves they're making. So the mayor's kind of trying to walk this fine line, and she's just getting hammered. And, rightfully so on some of this stuff because some bad choices were made. Then we also had the civil rights reckoning. Bad choices, in my opinion. Got to always kind of say, all right, take what you know to be true, and it's like, all right, in my opinion, bad call. So, and I'm saying that about a bunch of stuff, but again, it's kind of my opinion. But then that's why you guys are here watching me. Then we've also had a civil rights reckoning. All of these changes continue. It will be better. There's hope on the horizon with the COVID-19 vaccine. We have so much work ahead of us. My job as mayor is to really do what's in the best interest of the city. I believe focusing my energies on tackling those tough problems is what I need to do for the city. So on the surface, it looks like she's taking the high road. She's going to bow out because otherwise would have taken this next year of, heavy campaigning to probably keep her job, or else she dips out, probably takes consulting job. I don't know. What do mayors end up doing? They end up taking the best deal that's out there, just like anybody else. Durkan said she has been most proud of sponsoring legislation to provide free college tuition, protections for domestic workers and rideshare drivers, and for creating millions of dollars in new affordable housing. While the past year has been challenging, Durkan said she's pleased with helping to create free citywide COVID-19 testing, an eviction moratorium, and securing personal protective equipment for city businesses and immigrants. It was not lost on many City Hall observers that Durkan has sparred recently with two people whose political ambitions may include the mayor's office, Teresa Mosqueda and Lorena Gonzalez. Both council members were actively involved in the budget negotiations this summer, with Mosqueda serving as budget chair and Gonzalez as city council president. Mosqueda was also the writer of the Jumpstart tax or payroll tax, basically tax Amazon. Because, if you tax enough big businesses, all your problems will go away. Except when the businesses leave, and then you're like, wait a minute, where'd our revenue go? What happened? We taxed them and they left? Oh, no. I'm making fun. But that's just how it feels, right? Jumpstart tax or payroll tax levied on big businesses at the start of the economic meltdown. That was some terrible timing. You can't really do that to businesses at the beginning of a pandemic. I don't know what's going through some of these people's minds. Gonzalez declined to admonish Councilmember Shama Sawant, who led a march and protest to Durkan's house and who opened up City Hall for a sit-in. Durkan made a formal request for Gonzalez to issue some sort of formal rebuke. Sawant is now facing a recall effort based in large part on those events. I have been openly critical of the Shama Sawant march. Took a bunch of protesters who were not peaceful to Durkan's house. That's not cool. I don't care what you think you're going to get out of that, but that is not a cool event. That is not something on your resume. Led march on mayor's house, where peaceful protesters graffitied and did a little bit of damage, not a lot, because I told them not to. I mean, I'm sure that's how it went down. But I don't care how much you dislike somebody, don't lead a march on their house. That to me that's a no-go. House is somebody's castle. Don't bring a bunch of Looney Tunes around, graffiti it up, do a bunch of just stuff. Also, don't open up City Hall for the peaceful protesters. That to me is also like, what are you doing? You could have led them anywhere else in the city but City Hall for a sit-in. Really? But we're talking about Shama Sawant. She is in the process of state Supreme Court. We'll hear her case January 8th, I believe, on whether the recall effort against her can proceed. And Mayor Durkan has been like, yeah, you need to rebuke this person. What she did was wildly out of line. And I think it was too. Durkan denied that the march and graffiti at her house factored into her decision. It's got to factor in a little bit. I don't want to go through that again. That was brutal. You know what I thought was really interesting is immediately after that march happened, guess what? CHOP got closed down willy-nilly. Just boom, done. It was a few days after. I can't remember exactly, but it was like, oh, okay. Well, enough is kind of the mandate from the mayor. This is what we're doing. You guys are shut down. You guys went way past the line of reasonable, and we're shutting you down. Which she could have done way earlier, but we were having the summer of love. We were having the summer of love until it turned into a couple of murders and a bunch of other crime that nobody saw coming. Just out of nowhere. Summer of love went sideways on us. Disappointing. She received numerous death threats as well. Her home has previously been protected under the Address Confidentiality Program because of her time as U.S. Attorney. Okay, and that's where I'm like, don't go to somebody's house, no matter what. Write them an email, call them, let them you know you don't love them, but don't lead a march on their house. Be reasonable. Those factors did not lead to this decision, she said. I do think they should lead to a conversation in our city about how we get past some of the toxic politics. Yeah, I agree with that. And it was not just me. You know, you saw various council members where people came to their homes and marches and protests, part of who we are. But spray painting hate speech or doing other kinds of vandalism, we got to get beyond that. And I had both the president making threats and that kind of activity. Yeah, that happened. That was an ongoing basis. You're like, what is wrong with Seattle? Why are we on this one-way road to not a successful position? Let's put it that way. Both Gonzalez and Mosqueda are also up for their at-large or citywide council seats in 2021, and both have their eyes on a bigger stage. Gonzalez ran a brief campaign for Washington State Attorney General last year. Mosqueda got a high-profile spot when she introduced Jay Inslee as her presidential campaign kickoff. After that campaign sputtered, she did the same for Bernie Sanders at a large Tacoma Dome event last year. So some political posturing by the City of Seattle council members. And after that, that's after they've had some shenanigans this summer in Seattle. Mosqueda is seen as a reliable friend of organized labor, and her city council priorities have echoed that. Gonzalez has long been a champion for social justice causes, dating back to her time as a civil rights attorney. Both Gonzalez and Mosqueda also endorsed Zachary DeWolf in a 2019 primary challenge of Sawant in a bit of a raw political power play. But after he finished fourth in the primary, they both endorsed Sawant for reelection. Durkan's move will force both Gonzalez and Mosqueda to consider whether to run a citywide campaign for their current seat or give it up to run for mayor. Do I go broke? Do I take my current seat and work out my little position where I'm going with that? Or do I roll the dice and see if I can make it to mayor? I don't know. I'll have to find out. I'll have to just kind of watch this. If they choose the latter, there'll be more dominoes to fall. Dominoes falling. Political dominoes. But both were given pause during the summer when multiple sources said a labor-backed poll of voters showed both council members losing a hypothetical head-to-head match up with Durkan, and the council was given as a whole highly unfavorable ratings. What? How can this be? They've done so much good. No, they haven't. They've made some really poor decisions. Durkan's support in the same poll had softened considerably year over year and by double digits, but she still ranked higher than both of her political challengers. Candidates can file to raise money now, but don't have to commit to a formal campaign until May of 2021. Whoever runs will face the difficulty of launching a campaign in a potentially socially distanced way and try to cast themselves as a leader of economic and public health recovery with a plan for homelessness in the state's largest city. The pandemic has only exacerbated the proliferation of encampments across Seattle, with multiple public parks now overrun by tents and debris. I've done multiple podcasts on that. Seattle is a train wreck in the homelessness situation. Not unlike a lot of other cities, but guess what? We're basically just not dealing with it. We've defunded the outreach program. I'm told the outreach program is being put back together, but it's not really going to be involving police officers. You are going to have social workers, and I had a social worker get murdered here in Seattle as the city council was voting to defund the police. Literally happened within, I don't know if it was minutes or hours. Same event happened. Social worker got taken out. And I've got a podcast that's being released on that right now. One of the comments that came back is we should give the social workers a whistle because they're not getting weapons. But this is just a terrible idea in Seattle. Send out social workers on 911 calls. Not a good call. Not a good look, Seattle. Durkan was elected in large part because she built a bridge between the business and labor communities. I am not seeing that bridge at all anymore. Don't see that. Businesses feel widely neglected by the current mayor and the current Seattle City Council. And now they're feeling neglected by the police because there's not enough cops on the street to make the streets safe for business owners, employees, customers, or just anybody walking down the sidewalk. Not a good look, Seattle. It's just, got so much stuff going on. There have been political consultants who have suggested that King County Executive Dow Constantine, a West Seattleite, an ambitious politician as well, could scrap his reelection campaign for a fourth term and pivot to a city hall run. That would lead to more jockeying for position inside the King County Courthouse and Chinook building. I think you will see a number of people who emerge. There will be a lot of names bandied about, Durkan told King 5. I'm really hopeful by the end of next year we'll have laid the foundation for a very strong recovery, but that recovery will take years. All right, I agree with one part in that sentence, and that's the recovery is going to take years. I don't think we've laid a foundation for much of anything. We're trying to figure out what to do, and we are making some decisions here in Seattle that to me are going to go one direction, and it is not in a positive one. We're looking at some social experiments, and we're like, I just know we're going to, that social experiment, that didn't work out. What were we thinking there? Whose call was that? Who came up with that? Oh, we did? Oh, damn it. Well, on to the next. That's literally what's going to happen. And people are going to die in the meantime. Durkan's announcement also has sorts of ramifications to the police department. She has been reluctant to start a nationwide search for a chief after the departure of Carmen Best. Interim Chief Adrian Diaz is operating without council confirmation or any formal search, and he is always referred to as Interim Chief Adrian Diaz. It is hard to see how any search would be conducted at this point with an outgoing mayor and the department in such financial flux. There are likely more budget cuts to come in 2021, not only for the police department, but others as well. Seattle Police Department is now further away from getting out from under its years-long federal consent decree. Carmen Best spoke to King 5 following Durkan's announcement on Tuesday, former police chief. Well, I was surprised that the mayor decided not to run for re-election, but I really appreciate the reasons that she gave. Okay. I mean, there are a number of very complex issues facing the city that will take a lot of time and effort to keep the city going. And the distraction of campaigning might be a bit much at this time when we're facing a number of very pervasive issues. Yeah, hard to justify campaigning when you've got just a train wreck of issues facing the city. I mean, never mind the fact we're still in a ridiculous pandemic, and our governor, in his infinite wisdom, kicked out our lockdown through January 4th. not based on the data and the science, but because he feels like this is where we need to be. Best acknowledged, back to Carmen, best acknowledged that she's heard her own tossed around as a potential candidate. I think my name has been bandied around a little bit. Again, it's not something I've considered at this point, so I find it very flattering. But we do know that whatever happens in the future, it's going to take strong leadership to make sure that all these really important issues are addressed. The homelessness, the work issues, the business situation, the West Seattle Bridge, that's another big one that I haven't really touched on, because it's like, all right, you got a bridge that's broken and we're going to repair it versus replace it. Kind of impacts the timeline. I don't know. You guys want me to cover that? Let me know in the comments. I don't think you do. I think it'd be one of those podcasts where it's like, well, you got a bridge that's broken. Do you fix it or not? And that would kind of be it. But there's a lot of people that are impacted by that bridge. It's a big bridge. Basically makes West Seattle an island if you don't have that bridge, because you got to go all the way around. It's a drag. But if you don't live around here, you don't care. The dock and the pier, we had a pier fall into the water because it was damaged and breaking. All of those things is what Best is saying. Then COVID-19, and that's kind of the kicker, right? So all those things are pretty large and looming issues, and it's going to take a lot of leadership to work the city through it and come out fine on the other end. Durkan had not raised a ton of money for a reelection campaign, and in fact was outraised by Lance Randall, who launched his campaign officially back in September. Randall of South Seattle serves as Seattle's Economic Development Director and Interim Executive Director. He has raised almost $8,000 according to state and city records. Governor Jay Inslee released a statement following Durkan's announcement. I know you guys are going to want to hear this. Let's see what Jay says about this. And I'm saying this in my most sincere politician's voice, because that's what I always hear Governor Inslee say, even though the words coming out of his mouth don't really match up with reality most of the time, in my opinion again. I thank Mayor Durkan for all she has done for Seattle. All right. Jenny has led through tumultuous times and had to make difficult decisions with grace and dignity. She has always worked to represent the needs of all Seattleites. I don't know, really? And helped to make the city a world-class place during a time of strong economic transition. Strong economic transition. What does that mean? Strong. Things are happening. Economic, business-wise, transition, not going well. The Durkan administration has led the way on investments in affordable housing. Yes, she has done that, and spending money in communities of color. Expanded high school, preschool, and pioneered the Seattle Promise program to provide pre-college thousands of public high school students. Been a great partner with the state through the COVID-19 pandemic, through expanded testing and economic help for restaurants and small businesses. Mayor Durkan cares deeply for... Do we really want to continue with this? No, I'm not going to. I'm just not. It's my podcast, and I can do what I want, and that's what I'm going to do. All right, so this is where we're at. The article is basically over at this point anyway. So Mayor Durkan is not coming back for her second election. This will put Seattle, as you can see, this kind of triggers a whole bunch of political stuff, because some of these positions, there are people that are going to get moved up. Somebody's going to get moved up to mayor. Somebody's going to have to take those reins, and then you're going to have their position create a vacuum. You're going to pull some other people up. What's going to happen in Seattle? I bet you it's just further train wreck, right? I mean, it's part of the reason you guys tune into the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Let's see what the train wreck is in Seattle today. Let's see what Sean talks about. See what kind of nonsense is going on there. So, this one isn't necessarily nonsense, but it is. It's like, that's interesting. She's bowing out. I wonder how come. I don't think we really know the story. That's the bottom line. I think Mayor Durkan, she faced some really harsh criticism this summer and made some decisions that to me were like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And she kind of got burned for some of them. And here we are. So she is not doing re-election. It's about all I can say on that one. I'm not overtly surprised, but then again, it's like I'm not really surprised by a lot of the politics that happens in Seattle now, because most of it doesn't make any sense. A lot of the decisions don't make any sense to me, but that's why I'm kind of critical of a lot of what goes on in Seattle, and I'm a Bellevue guy. So I am outside of the system, and I don't really understand the Seattle politics. I don't understand half the people that get elected over there. It's like, what are we doing? What are you guys doing? What do you expect is going to happen when you hire the people that you've hired? Not hired, you've voted in. I always say hire because I'm a business guy and that's what you do. All right, I'll take that guy for that dollars and that, salary a year. That's what we're doing. Instead, in all these positions, they're political and you got to vote them in. So the people of Seattle, what are you doing with a lot of this stuff? I don't know. But as these issues come up, I'm going to report them for you right here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. So thanks so much for tuning in. Love to have you subscribe if you see fit. If not, you do you. I'll do me. We'll meet back here again. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks again for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.